Theology. Unplugged.
Welcome to Theology Unplugged. I'm Michael Patton, and this is a special session of Theology Unplugged that I'm trying out. As you can see on the description, it's Theology Unplugged question answer for patrons. And so there, on my Patreon that I tell you about quite often, right there, on my Patreon page, you can go there and become a member. And if you become a member, we got this little chat session down there that says, chat, or there's 3 or 4 different chats we've started. I may kind of wind that down to one, and so that everybody knows where to chat, where to ask questions. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to start by letting people ask questions that are members of my Patreon about whatever it is. You can ask a question about anything at all, but specifically think about asking questions that have to do with the Through Theology in a Year. So we'll do Monday through Thursday. We'll be doing the classes. If this plan works out, we'll be doing the classes, and then Fridays, we'll start to have a discussion. And this is the best way right now for me to start having a discussion with you guys about what is going on here. Hopefully this thing is growing. I don't even know if it's growing. I don't ever check. I don't know how many views it gets or anything. I know that Theology Unplugged on our feed, the Spotify and Apple Podcast has been very, very popular in the past, but since we had that downtime for so long, my fault, we had that downtime for so long, I don't know what it's like now. But anyway, so if you are coming to us through one of those other venues to where you cannot see what I'm doing, that is fine. It's perfectly fine. I try to explain everything. I try to push everything that I'm looking at to you guys in a verbal manner, but it is much better to go through this and watch it at the same time if you can. Okay, but I know some of you watch it on the way to work or on the way back to work, whatever. So that's great. Keep on doing it. But if you are, and you want to ask a question, go to my Patreon. That's the place, and become a member of the Patreon. And it's patreon.com/C Michael Patton, Christopher Michael Patton. So C Michael Patton. I put the C in front of it because there's another guy out there that if you search, it is Mike Patton, and he's the lead singer of Faith No More, and so I try to distinguish myself from him. I don't know anything about him. He had one good song in the 90s. I liked it okay, it wasn't that great. Wasn't one of the great grunge songs that I love so much, but that's who it is. So I'm distinguishing myself from him. So usually if you search for C Michael Patton, that's much better because that's the way I put myself in everything. Okay, guys, let's see here. We're going to do some question and answer, and this is, like I said, this is the first time, so I don't have very many questions specifically for this, the theology, Through Theology in a Year. But let's see here. Let's go to the first question, and first of all, I want to throw up an image for you, or a quote. This is from Francis Schaeffer. And Eric, if you're watching, you'll like this, because Eric, one of my Patreon members, is always quoting Francis Schaeffer. He loves Francis Schaeffer. I do too. But here's one of the quotes from him. It says, "I need to remind myself constantly that this is not a game I'm playing." And he's a theologian. He's an apologist. He was something else. He really was. He was a different kind of person. If I begin to enjoy it as a kind of intellectual exercise, then I am cruel and can expect no real spiritual results. Now, I know what he's saying. I think you can look at this and interpret it, but he's just basically saying if that's the focus, if I become focused upon my own intellectual acumen and ability to communicate to people, then it's no good. It's no good. And that is very true. But there's another sense as well in which you can enjoy the intellectual part of it because it's part of the way God made you, and that's the part of the place where you meet God. And it's exciting it's exciting for me as I begin to see the looks on people's faces as they change. I can see. I've done this long enough where I can see when people get it. I can see it in their face. And it's one of the greatest things in the world. Now, I can't see it in your face. I've just done this long enough, hopefully, that your face is doing some of this. As I push the man off his false balance, he must be able to feel that I care for him. What a great statement. It really is, to feel that you care for him. Otherwise, I will only end up destroying him. And the cruelty and ugliness of it all will destroy me as well. That is such a great statement. There's one more, too, that my sister sent me, and I probably should not bring this up this quickly on the fly, but it was really a good quote, and it was from A.W. Tozer. Love A.W. Tozer, too. Very different type of person. But A.W. Tozer wrote about, let's see here. Let me get it up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it that quickly. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Okay. It says, by no means the scholar, the scholar has a yeah, the scholar has a vitally important task to perform within a careful prescribed precinct. His task is to guarantee the purity of the text, to get as close as possible to the word as originally given. He may compare the scriptures with scriptures until he has discovered the true meaning of the text. But right there, his authority ends. He must never sit in judgment upon what is written. He dare not bring the meaning of the word before the bar of his reasons. Isn't that great? The bar of his reasons as we're looking at this. There's a great quote that Paul makes in Romans from the Psalms, which is basically this: God will prevail. He's talking at God. David is, whenever he says this. You will prevail when you are judged. And Paul quotes that later on because Paul is giving a defense of God in Romans. In many different ways, it's a defense of God. But he starts off by saying that God, whatever you think you know, whoever you think God is, however angry you might get at God, God is going to prevail in the end. And it's not as if he's going to be a mean, seditious God who throws the gavel down and he's angry about it and he wins because of his power, but it is because the understanding, because it makes sense, because he actually is the one who is in the right, and he will prevail because righteousness will prevail. And I take that to mean a lot of this stuff, whenever we're going through this, back to what we talked about yesterday and the mystagogical celebration, the celebration of mystery that I encouraged all of us to enjoy and take part in. I take this as something that's where you enter into the mystery. It's where the intellect pushes you necessarily into the mystery of God. That is so exciting. And if you don't go in that mystery, you're going to try to fix it all the time. That's all you're going to do is you're going to be trying to fix everything. And you're going to build your theology the way you want. It's going to look nice to you. But in the end, it doesn't fit with God's revealed word. It doesn't fit with what he told us. And that's why I said last time, it's very important for us to understand. I think I said this last time. But anyway, it's very important for us to understand that I think there are things that God just hasn't told us, just to say, hey, will you trust me? Will you trust me with this? I'm not going to tell you why. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to fix it for you intellectually or emotionally. But I want you to trust me because you know me, because I am trustworthy, because I'm big enough to take care of you. I mean, we all had situations where we had our dad, and everything he told us to do, whenever you grow up and you're under his protection, whenever you're under his wing, you know that he's going to take care of you. You know he's not going to lead you into some place that is going to destroy you, is going to hurt you, you're not going to fall off any cliffs. Why? Because You trust them, not because you have to know the map of everything you're doing. Sometimes that's what we do. We want to know the map of everything. Every single little thing we have to fix in our mind and in our theology. And this is one thing that I'm not going to read the whole quote, but my sister Christy sent it to me, and she's reading Tozer right now. And Tozer does enter into this mystagogical celebration. So does Francis Schaeffer. It's a great thing. Anyway, that's a great start for us. Hopefully that was good. Shout out real quick to Annalise, if you are watching. Annalise just wrote me earlier and said that she's praying for the ministry. She is my niece. Thank you, Annalise. You are absolutely stunningly beautiful. I love you so much. And I pray for you as well. And I hope that this session will help you out. Maybe that was God leading you to the session. Whenever you told me in the text, I think God just told me that the Credo House is going to start again. And we all take that as in the family chat is the Credo House coffee shop, because it's a big deal in our family, and we want it so much. We want to have that back so much. We miss it very, very much as a family. But she said the Credo House is going to start again, and that's what she said that she got from God. And I told her, yeah, we're starting in 30 seconds. The show is starting in 30 seconds. So maybe that's what God's telling you to watch. So I don't know if you're watching or not, but thank you so much for praying. Love you. And we're hopefully this session benefits you somehow. Okay, let's go to the first question. This is from Sherry Wagoner. Sherry Wagoner. She asked me a lot of questions, but I tried to pick out some of the stuff that was maybe something I could answer in a shorter period of time, or something that was more urgent. And she said at the end of session 8, you said you would start talking about him praying to Mary more than God in the next session. I think, and I didn't put the whole thing here. That gives us enough to be able to see what she's asking. But this is in Conversations with Tad, another part of Theology Unplugged. No, we don't do it on Theology Unplugged, but another podcast I have with a buddy of mine. And he used to be a Catholic, and so she missed the one where we are talking about Mary. If we even talked about Mary, we've done so many of them, I don't even remember. But I did want to talk about praying to Mary, praying to the saints, just for a second. Hopefully this will be beneficial to you. Now, I can be accused very easily of because of where I'm at with certain Catholics. I know really, really good Catholics. I know also that many people, such as yourself, have a very bad history with Catholicism. I'm not a Roman Catholic. I do not believe Roman Catholicism is... I do not believe that it brings to us the fullness of the gospel the way that Protestantism does. Okay, that's the way I'll put it. I'm not saying the Roman Catholic Church is heretical to the degree, or heretical in the sense that they are not Christians. I don't necessarily believe that if you are a practicing Roman Catholic, you can't be a Christian. This is just preamble, Sherry, to what you asked. But I do not believe that necessarily because you're Roman Catholic, you are not a Christian. I do believe that you can believe wrongly on things, and Christ is the center. We'll talk about that in Through Theology in a Year all next week. What is the center? What are the essentials, and how do you discern the essentials? A lot of you know that that's a big deal to me. I've been working on it for a long, long time, trying to figure out a methodology to find the essentials. But I don't think Roman Catholicism, you could say, denies the essentials if the essential is Jesus Christ, what he did for you, and the person and work of Christ, as I often say it. And so I applaud them very much. I applaud them now, and I applaud them historically. If you are a good Roman Catholic, you really do have an honor for Christ. And that there is the gospel to me. Now, I would tell Roman Catholics, I would say, listen, one of the things, I'm not settled, I'm not comfortable with Roman Catholicism. Okay, let's put it that way. Because I think you have an unnecessary burden on your back. You are carrying something. You are carrying too much of a load. You have the essential. You have accepted Christ. You know you're a sinner. You know that he has to take care of it on the cross. And you know that faith is necessary. You got the gospel. But at the same time, just like so many of us, even in the Protestant church, we do this all the time. We begin to pile things on top of the gospel. We begin to carry more of a burden. We begin to get scared. I mean, anybody who has doubted their faith has put a burden upon themselves that is unnecessary. And I've doubted my faith. I'm not saying that I'm not among you guys. And I often place burdens upon myself and doubt whether or not I'm really a Christian, or doubt whether or not God really is that gracious. And you can put things upon you. You can put further burdens, whether it's just baptism, and you say you have to be baptized as well to be saved, faith plus baptism, or faith plus the sacraments, or faith plus the praying to Mary, or going to a priest. Those are the burdens that I think Roman Catholics are carrying unnecessarily. Now, having said that, I think that in Roman Catholicism, you are much less likely to be a true believer because of the focus. And this is what Sherry brings up. She talks about praying to the saints. And I think that this is a focus within Roman Catholicism that can sometimes be so big, and I've seen it. I've seen it with Roman Catholics. It's so big that you don't even see Christ really. He's secondary. Who cares that much about him, because the primary thing I pray to is Mary and the saints. And now, having said that, I think at its base level, praying to the saints, praying to Mary, if you understand it correctly, is not as bad as most Protestants think. I don't think there's any reason to do that. I don't think there's any reason to think we can talk to the dead. I don't think my father died and my mother just died, and I have been thinking about both of them quite a bit lately. But I don't think I can talk to them. I don't even talk to them like kind of out loud and in general. Well, I guess sometimes I do. Whenever I get angry about something, I may say, Dad, I don't talk right about my dad because it's hard. But anyway, I may say something like that out loud, but I'm not really talking to him. I don't think he hears, or at least I do not have it within my theology. It's not that it's not allowable. It's just not there. I don't think people in heaven, I don't think people that have died can hear us. There's no reason in Scripture to be able to say that people such as Mary, such as the saints, hear us, and therefore we can talk to them. Now, if you're a good Roman Catholic, here's how you're going to put it. You're going to say, we don't pray to them in the sense of what Protestants think. Protestants think whenever you pray, you automatically worship. All we're doing is talking to dead people and asking them to pray for us through Christ. If you're going that direction, you're wrong. I mean, you're wrong, and I think it takes focus away from your faith, but at the same time, I don't think it's the absolute worst thing. I don't think you have multiple gods. Now, having said that, you can, because of what you do, what you focus on, because of people's love for Mary and their adoration for Mary, it does go overboard. And you do have this focus to where Mary is completely in the way of Christ, and that worries me. That worries me quite a bit whenever these other things, traditions, praying to the saints, other iconography, all of that stuff can get in the way of God, and it becomes idolatrous. It doesn't necessarily mean you're not saved, but it makes it less likely in that sense, because I don't know whether you're really seeing Christ. I don't know whether you're really trusting in him, and that's what you have to do. You have to see through all of the stuff that we also put up as Protestants. We do that. We really do. I've seen Baptists who put up the going to church. If you don't go to church, you can't be saved. That's kind of getting in front of Christ there. That's kind of getting in front of what God says. I think you need to go to church, but at the same time, doesn't mean you're not saved. I've seen Protestants adore the Bible so much that it worries me. And you may wonder what I'm talking about here, but it does. I mean, I think sometimes I've said this before, but sometimes Protestants worship the Father, the Son, and the Holy Bible. I mean, really, if you put it that way, I think you could see what I'm talking about, but it's all about the Bible. The Bible is kind of this idol that you touch that has power in and of itself, that is not communicating the God's word, but is something different. It has this power to it by in and of itself. And I do not believe that. And I think that gets in the way of Christ. What it speaks about is what is important. But anyway, so there's all kinds, Sherry, there's all kinds of different ways that people can understand praying to Mary and the saints. I don't like it. I think it is something that is not within the biblical tradition. It is not within Christian tradition. It is something that is added on because of our insecurity. We need something closer to us, something that we can more tangible. And sometimes these saints that represent different things, Mary, who is a woman and the mother of Christ, she's more tangible to us sometimes than God or even Christ, certainly more than the Holy Spirit. So anyway, that's the first question, Sherry. Thank you for the question. Eric always has questions, and I'll tell you what, Eric, you ought to go over to my blog and just read some of Eric's stuff. He writes blogs himself in the comments, and they are better than my blogs. I'm like, can I take what you wrote here and post it as a blog? But Eric says, let's see here. How does the concept of mystagogical celebration bridge the gap between faith and reason in contemporary practice? Well, okay. That's a good question, because it has to. I mean, if you don't see what I'm saying in marrying the mystery and the mystery and the revelation of God, then I just don't. I think the concept, everything about the way you're thinking, has to change. And then once that changes, then I think you will be able to see things in the mystery that they have, in the mystery that God has given to us, whether it is the sacraments, whether it is your own spiritual life, whether it is, I mean, here's the thing that you're open to at that point, is that there's much more going on than what we know. And I think once you accept that, once you see the mystery of everything that God has created, the mystery of everything that is beyond us, the mystery of Paul's statement whenever he says our battle is not against flesh and blood, that's a mystery. That is just what is this? And so we walk into this with a faith that is not simply a let's see here, a belief in I understand in order to believe. It's not understanding seeking faith. It's faith seeking understanding. And so I think that it changes your whole approach to life and theology. And I think people will see it in you as you move forward. I don't know if there's a real tangible way that you can always represent this. So hopefully that was helpful, Eric. Thank you for the question. Okay, Jim Zurich. Jim has been with me, I don't know how long. It has been forever. Okay, so I remember Jim, golly, it seems like back in 2006. He was either on my blog or in Theology Unplugged, or I don't know. But Jim's been around for a long time. So thanks, Jim. Thank you all for being patrons. I really, really do appreciate it. But you said, I'm reading through the Old Testament. This is the second time you had asked this, so I tried to find the one that was, I think, a better the best representation of the question. But you said, I'm reading through the Old Testament. At times I come across promises that God makes, excuse me. Oh man, I'm not all there. That God makes, I'm going to bring up my Bible here just so I can have this in front of me whenever we're talking about it. I use BibleWorks, by the way. BibleWorks is something that is no longer around, but it is the best Bible program that it was ever made. And I wish it was still around. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. So you talk about 2 Chronicles 7:14, and let's go here. Make sure I got it right. 7:14, 2 Chronicles 7:14. Okay, and my people who are called by my name humble themselves. Oh, I know where you're going with this. I know exactly where you're going with this. I should have known. But Second Chronicles 7:14 says, when my people who are called by my name humble themselves, pray, and seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. How do we know that this applies to us or to the nation of Israel? Because oftentimes you will hear this from me as well, used as an example, this particular passage, used as an example where we got to be careful, because sometimes we make the Bible apply to us in certain places where it doesn't. Now, sometimes it's really easy when we say, like I've used the example before where Paul asks Mark to bring him his books and his cloak. I think it is, but that's not to us. It's not a command to us. So it's real easy to place that in the context, because the immediate context lets us know that this is talking about a certain person, and therefore it is not a universal command for people to bring other people cloaks or books. It's really nice, and people like me love books. Cloaks, they're all right. I'm more of a winter guy, and I like to be cold, so not that many cloaks, maybe a small thin jacket. But anyway, that is not what that command said. That's not a command to us. That's easy in that context, because whenever we go through how to interpret the Bible, remember, we have to extract the timeless principles and understand what is timeless, what is not. What is God saying to all people about himself, or about mankind, or about salvation, whatever it is that God is telling all people of all time. And that's hard sometimes. It's not always hard. I mean, you go to the Proverbs, and if you read the Proverbs, usually those start in the timeless principles. Those start, I mean, there's context, yes. I mean, let's see here. How about rash words are like sword thrusts? Well, the context is swords. We don't know much about swords or sword thrusts, but back then they did. We might say, rash words are like gunshots, something like that. But the timeless principle is very easy for us to see, that you stop and think before you say things. And the timeless principle is within the context of the book and the genre of the book. They are proverbs. Proverbs by nature are timeless principles. So some of them are real easy to be able to tell. But whenever you get into the historical material, whenever you get into the Old Testament, many times you're going to see promises such as this from 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sins and heal their lands. Now, here's the thing, is that really we pray for this for America, and we pray for it because of the very last part. We want our land healed. And the question is this a promise, a universal promise to whoever is God's people, just God's people in general, which we are for Christians, if we humble ourselves and turn from our wicked ways, will God heal our land? Will he heal America? And I would look at this and I would say, you got to be very, very careful. I'm not saying a lot of this is not true. I'm just saying this has specific to, and I'm getting to the point that Jim was bringing up. Sometimes you have to see it in the context that it is a promise given to the nation of Israel under a different historical context. That different historical context was a theocracy where God was over the nation, and in Exodus chapter 19 and 20, he makes this deal with Israel. And he says, hey, if you want, you can be my people, but here's what you're going to do for me. Can you do it? And everybody said, yeah, we'll do it. Let's make this exchange. We want you to be our king. We want you to be our God. And so that was the deal that was made. And under that deal, which those kind of deals were made all the time, it's called Caesarean Vassal Treaty. Those kind of deals were made all the time in history. And what would happen is that the king would do certain things for the people. Well, God told Israel a big long list of things that he was going to do for them if they followed his covenant, if they did not break his covenant. And it was wonderful. And it was their land being healed. It was flowing with milk and honey. It was prosperity. It was peace. It was everything that they wanted. It was the greatest land in the world, as long as you do what I say, God said. And so this kind of stuff, sometimes you have to look at it and say, is this under the old covenant and therefore part of the Mosaic promises, the Mosaic covenant, the covenant that was given by God on Mount Sinai to the people of Israel and to the people alone? And I would say, listen, you got to be careful with this one, because I think it is. I mean, I really do. I think that the healing of the land only applies to Israel. So it doesn't mean that you and I here in America can do this same stuff and expect, or maybe a better way to put it is to demand that God, because of this, because of what he said, we demand that God will heal our land. And we can't do that, because this is part of the Mosaic covenant. Go back and read the Mosaic covenant. This is just a reiteration of it in a different way. And the question is, how do we know when it is and whatever it isn't? And here's the general principles that I try to follow. Number one, it's not always easy. But number two, you ask the question, is whatever is stated here repeated in different contexts outside of the nation of Israel? In other words, is it repeated to the church? That's number one. Is what you are looking at repeated? Okay. The second thing you look at is what you are looking at repealed? Okay, because sometimes it is repealed. Sometimes you get to the New Testament and things are different. The Mosaic law, everything about the sacrificial system and the ceremonial law of the nation of Israel had been fulfilled by Christ. Therefore, it is repealed. So it doesn't have application to us. So I look at this and I say, this is outside. Here's what I say, okay? I'll tell you what is repeated. We know that we are to humble ourselves. We know that we are to pray and seek God. That's a general principle. You can extract that, and that's always timeless. We know that we are supposed to turn from our wicked ways, and we know that whenever we do this, God will hear us from heaven and forgive our sin. That much is true. Why? Because it's repeated. Because we see it outside of this particular covenant. We see that this is a general this is a general outcome of the character of God as well, that we know that he's a forgiving God, that he's gracious God, that he's a righteous God. So all these things fit very well into the broad eternal principle, except for the heal our land. So I think, Jim, whenever it comes down to this kind of stuff, you've got to ask the question, is it for the nation of Israel? That's the primary thing. You say, is it for the immediate context, the general historical context, or do we find this throughout the Bible? Now, let me repeal everything I just said in one way. If you are, I'm more of a dispensationalist type. I know that term is terrible for some people, and if it is, I'm probably not like you think. I am a dispensationalist, but at the same time, there's just so much wrong understanding about dispensationalism. I hate calling myself that these days, and I hate even talking about covenant theologians too, because they are misrepresented so much. It's a bad situation, dispensationalism and covenant theology, to where these terms have been spoiled to such a degree that I don't even know whether they're worth using anymore. But anyways, having said that, covenant theologians believe that the church itself is the new Israel. And so this has, even the land part has an eternal application. Everything that God has promised to us in the Old Testament has an eternal application for everybody. They have interpretive methods for that, and they are very different. There are different types of covenant theologians. I'm just giving you a general caveat of of an exception to my rule that a lot of very good people follow. So that's mine. But listen, I'm a dispensationalist. I do not see us as under the Mosaic law, and I do not see us as usurpers of Israel. That's the best way to put it. I do see us as the new Israel in a way. That's a different question. We are the one olive tree of God. Romans chapter 11. Israel, that we are God's people. That's the best way to put it. There's always God's people. We have been now integrated into this olive tree. Israel has been taken out, but they will be put back in under different terms, and that is the terms of the forgiveness of and exception of Christ, not the Mosaic law. Those are the old terms. They couldn't do it. So anyway, that's a long answer for that, Jim. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Let's see here. Let's go over here. Let's see. I got one. I don't know what this is, but there's one that says, what exactly is meant by tradition? I'm not sure what this name is. I think I've seen it before, and I think I should know the name, but One Info Central. You say, what exactly is meant by tradition? Golly, okay, tradition. Let me just give you the quickest answer I can on that. Think of it this way. There's big T tradition and there's small T tradition. And okay, let's think of it that way. Big T tradition, small T tradition, and think of it as also there is tradition and traditionalism. Okay, traditionalism is kind of like the big T tradition. This is the one that you put up, and you have to follow because it is authoritative. It becomes what your life is about. You have tradition, you have a way of doing things, and that way of doing things has taken over in your church, in your life. Your tradition is the most important part. Your habits, the way you're used to doing things, the way that the church has always done things, and how it grows, and it has accretions that grow and grow and grow, and become the kind of this monster. That's the traditionalism, and that can show that just like everything else that I was talking about, it can stand in front of Christ and keep you from seeing him the way Christ wants to see you to see him. So that is tradition. It is that stuff that builds up, that grows and grows and grows, has no foundation, has no principle, and becomes in and of itself the most important thing. Let's put it this way. Christ is the most important thing, right? He's kind of the center, the person, work of Christ. He's our gospel. And then we start to build our traditions around that to protect it. That's not so bad, but whenever the tradition walls around Christ get so tall that you can no longer see Christ, that's traditionalism. Tradition is the walls, the kind of the boundaries that you set up. That's okay. But I think the boundaries are automatically set up by Christ. I think of Christ as a center, and I don't think of Christianity as boundaries. That's a whole different lesson too, whether Christianity is boundaries or it has a center. We'll talk about that some other time. Okay, hopefully that was helpful for a short answer. And let's see here. I got Linton Park. Linton Park has been with me forever as well. And he asks, how about a video on what the Bible teaches about the rapture? Oh man. I'm not sure how to do a full video on that. I could probably do one over the history of it. Okay, let's put it this way. I do believe in the rapture. I still do. As you'll see next week, as I look about, or maybe it's the week after, I'm not sure when we'll get to it, but whenever we talk about this, there are things that I am sure about, and there are things that I believe, but I don't know. There's things that I don't really care about that much, and in one way or the other, it doesn't make any difference because it doesn't affect my faith. So I got all kinds of variations in my belief. Whenever it comes to the rapture, that's one of the very low ones. I do believe in it, but I don't believe you can defend it that well. Okay, let's put it that way. I do believe you can defend it enough to say there is warrant to believe it, but I don't think you can defend it enough to say that this is, something that is very clear, that God has made clear. Maybe we'll do something later on over that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even brought that up. I shouldn't have even taken a look at that, because there's no way I can do a full, to spend that much time on the rapture. All I can say right now is I do believe in it, and there's certain reasons, because of the way it's not really the traditional ways of looking at it. There's something that Paul says to the Thessalonians, that if the rapture were not true, it does not make any sense, because he was supposed to have already taught that to them. And so if he the basic idea is this: if he is bringing up a mystery and he says it's a mystery, then that means it's something new right then. And he had already taught them about the second coming. So whenever he talks about the mystery, that is something brand new, even though he's already talked about the second coming. So you see what I'm saying here? Behold, I tell you a mystery. Okay, that's my basic, that's my strongest defense. I've got other defenses, probably about 4 or 5 other lines that I think push the warrant down a little bit further, but not too much further. And if I could give up the rapture in no time and kind of shrug my shoulders. Sorry, Dallas Seminary. Sorry, I did graduate there. But you didn't even teach me that. I mean, you really did. Did you know Dallas Seminary never taught me about the rapture? The characterizations that you might have Dallas Seminary, and I had 1 hour on dispensationalism. I promise you. Isn't that funny? Things we don't know, the things we think about other people and other places, and we don't really know. It's just the traditions, the big T's we're building up that don't represent what is behind it any longer. That's tradition. Okay, Sharon. We got a couple more here. Sharon, let's see here. What is this? You say, it bothers me that I see in my hometown 3 churches that are that basically have the same beliefs, okay? 3 churches that have the same beliefs, okay? Struggling to survive. They can't see this. They can't they see this in the time to unite? I can't read. I'm sorry. I can't read. Sharon, sorry. I'm going to have to skip your question because I can't read. Can't they see that this is the time to unite? 2 of them on the western side of town split apart years ago, and I think they are stubborn, proving they are the ones who are right. The third on the eastern side used to be big but is growing smaller now. Do you think churches demand too much? Does it become all about the tithe? It could. I mean, I don't really have enough information about this, Sharon, but here's what I would say based upon what we've gone through so far. Most churches build up traditions. Whatever those traditions are. Remember what we talked about earlier? Big T, small t traditions. And you don't have to be a Catholic to have tradition. You don't have to be a Catholic to have something that mirrors praying to Mary. See, that's part of our problem as Protestants. We think we don't do any of this stuff. We do. I mean, we elevate the type of music to such a degree that you can't see Christ anymore. We elevate even our own liturgy sometimes in the same way that maybe the Eastern Orthodox or Protestants do. And the failures, the trip-ups that they have, we have as well. And so many churches, it becomes about the smaller stuff. It becomes about pleasing people. It becomes about not just the tithe and getting the tithe, but who is getting the tithe and who is in control, especially in Baptist churches. And if you're asking me, how can we get rid of this? I would say, number one, we're always going to have this. We always have. It'd be foolish for me to say, here, I've got the answer and, I came up with it and we'll fix it. It's not going to be fixed. There will be division. There will be idiots. There will be people who have their traditions and shield Christ to where you can't see them in their lives, and they look ugly. They don't look like they're Christians, and they are messed up, and they are running churches. and you will have fights over so much. Now, here's what I would say. If I was talking to somebody, they said, "Hey, Michael, can you come here and tell us, what I should do in this place?" I would say, do the same thing one of my pastors told me to do a long time ago. He said, make sure you mix things up continually, because people are very prone to follow whatever you do on a regular basis. And I thought that was really great. I mean, I didn't understand it at the time because it was a long time ago. But as I go through and see this, I'm like, we really do. We should be mixing things up so people don't get used to anything but Christ. We should mix things up. Mix the liturgy up sometimes. Mix the type of music up. Don't even do music one time. Just try to make it to where you break things up. And we have something like this whenever you go to exercise. And I may have told some of you guys this before, but whenever you exercise, you have machine weights and you have free weights. And most people know that free weights are better than machine weights and more effective, but they don't know why. And so, why is it? Why is it that free weights are better than machine weights? Because free weights do not have a set range of motion. Your muscles get used to it. Your muscles quit growing. Whenever you're always on machine weights, it's just, if you're doing bench press, you're just doing it like this, the exact same thing. Whenever you're doing the overheads, you're just doing your shoulders, you're doing it just like this, and it's the same thing every time. But whenever you got free weights, you got to balance, and your muscles don't know what to do because they're not used to it. Muscles want to get used to something just like the rest of us. Even within our body, our muscles want to get used to doing the same thing and get comfortable with it. So what do? You switch things up. You even switch things up to such a degree where you're not just changing free weights. You're not just moving over to free weights. You're changing your entire exercise routine. And I used to tell people whenever I did this quite often, whenever I was a trainer, believe it or not, I used to be a fitness trainer, but whenever I was a trainer, here's what I would tell people who came to me and said, I've quit growing. Because that was very often. A lot happened at the very beginning. My muscles were growing. I was getting stronger, but all of a sudden I've quit. They said, what should I do? And I said, see Bob over there? Go ask Bob if you can work out with him today. They're like, what are you talking about? Why would I work out with Bob? It doesn't look like anything's that great with him. I say, because no matter what, he's doing something completely different than you're used to. And you do it. And work out with him maybe for a week, and then go back to your routine. Your routine, you will find, will start working again after you work out with Bob. This is called shocking your muscles. And I think we got to shock our spiritual muscles by changing things, making sure we don't get used to traditions. I wish that a pastor would say, listen, everybody here, I assign you within this year sometime, let's say 30 times this year. And yes, I mean 30 times. I mean a lot. Because we have to shock our muscles a lot. We have to change our routine a lot. Say, go to a different church. I don't care what church it is, but go to a different church and just see what they do, listen to what they do, and see how God is working. That will keep you out of this traditionalism business. It'll keep you out of the capital T business of tradition. And you just can't help but grow because of that. We stop growing because we're on a machine theology. We're on machine traditions. We are on machine church. Same thing, same way, every time. And it ends up messing us up in the long run. Good for a little bit, but then in the long run, it messes us up. Change churches every once in a while. I mean, go to a different church. Pastors will hate me for saying this, but you need to do that. Go spend a year somewhere else. Just get out of your routine. Okay. I even forgot what the question was. maybe it was a question that had some relevance there, but I usually go off onto a different track whenever I'm answering these questions. Okay. Let's see here. This is Sherry again. Sherry says, "Hello, Michael. I just finished in this last one. I just finished listening through Theology in a Year, session 16. So sorry about your sister. Thank you very much. And the experience of your mother. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that she had with the false interpretation of the psalm that you spoke of. I'm sure you will probably get to it at some point this year, so I'm probably jumping the gun, but I still wanted to ask the question, if the Bible was written over 2,000 years ago, how do we find anything that would directly apply to our life today? I'm not sure if, my the last time I talked about this, I think it was Jim maybe that asked it, but about the Old Testament, if that helped out some, because the different proverbs, the different historical situations, the different immediate situations that you find in the scripture, and going through the 3 steps, what did it mean then? What does it mean for all time, if anything? And what you're asking is, how do we know that the scripture has relevance to us for all time? Now, the first thing I would say is this, more important than anything else, we know this first and foremost because Christ said it, and Christ died and rose from the grave as a historical reality, okay? That's why I believe the Bible. That's why I think the Bible is inspired, because Christ did. I follow what I believe happened to Christ and the authority that he presented in himself, and therefore what his words say have great meaning to me. And I would not have any reason for believing the Bible outside of Christ. I want to say that because there's other reasons, but the most important reason, the most relevant, is Christ. And so if Christ says that the Bible applies to us, then I believe it. And I think he does. I think he does directly and indirectly in many different ways, because he gives the authority to the apostles, and the apostles talk about what was written before time was written for our learning, so that we may have comfort and hope. That's what Paul says. All the things that were written before were written for us to have hope. And in the historical situation, whenever we have this being God's word, and then we have Christ saying, this is God's word, whenever you have Paul saying it is written to us for our comfort and hope, that is whenever we're able to look back there and believe and trust that as long as we do it right, as long as we interpret right, there is going to be an eternal principle, and that eternal principle, if it is eternal principle, by virtue of it being an eternal principle, applies to us. And so we're always looking for that eternal principle. We're always looking for that which applies to all of us, because that touches us immediately. But it doesn't mean that that is all there is, because, just knowing the history of the Bible is very important. Number one, because we like to know history. We want to see what's gone before us. We want to see what God has already done. We want to see where we're at in the history of redemption. We love the history of it. But number two, because we learn from the people there. We identify with the people there. And so we find ourselves in these things. So there's so much and so many ways that the Bible does apply to us, but some of the ways, get this, some of the ways are just like any other historical figure applies to you, because we find identity in it, and we know that God is sovereign and in control of things. So there's some things that are direct principles that have eternal value for all people of all time, and then apply to us, and we have to find that. And sometimes we just identify with the history situation. So I don't want to undermine the historical value of the Bible, in the sense that all we're trying to do is get to that eternal principle, and we don't care about what was going on back then. Hope that made sense. I do. Sherry, thank you for asking the questions. Thank you all for being here, whatever format you are watching this on. I hope you enjoy this. Here, listen, if you did enjoy this, please let me know. Please let me know if you want me to keep on doing this kind of Friday question and answer for my patrons, because that would be valuable for me to know whether just keep on. I thought, man, I'm doing a whole lot of theology. I don't have the interaction with people that probably they want, so let's try Fridays for interaction. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. There's the place to go to become a patron, and there is a chat area in there. And if you, let's see, what does the chat area say? There is a question, a chat area, and one of the I think it's just one of the threads. One of the threads in the chat area says, "Ask me anything video answer." That's probably the best place to put it, but I do look at every one of these. So if you put it in theological discussion or questions for Uber Theologian, I can do that as well, but I'll look at it all. But that's the best place to put it, is in the Ask Me Anything. Now, one more thing here. Let's see here. If I can get to this, look at this. As I'm done, listen, I promise you guys that are watching this, I do promise, I looked at this right before I started. I know I posted it too late on my Patreon. I posted an announcement on my Patreon that I was doing this 1 hour beforehand. 1 hour doesn't give anybody any time, but I did look through and found everybody's questions, and there are a few questions here from Roy. Roy, I'm sorry I didn't get to yours, but I will look at this next time. Roy, do this for me. If you could post it in the chat area that I just said, that would be great. The same one. And Eric, do the same. Next time I will write a blog or a post that says what to do, where to post it. But you guys know, if you're listening to this, post it in the place where it says Ask Me Anything, and we'll use that for now. And also, if you're a patron, tell me there whether you like this or not, whether you think I should keep on doing this. Okay, thank you guys for sticking with me this time and sticking with me all week. Thank you for committing yourself in such a way. Thank you for deciding at least to try to love God with all your mind. Listen, I've told you this before, and I'm going to tell you this again, and I'm done. You are incredibly smart. You really are, I swear. This is not some false encouragement like my mom. My mom used to do this. My mom used to always say, "You're the best vacuumer in the world," and it worked. I'd say, "Oh yeah, well, let me show you how really good I am, and I'm going to be better than you saw last time." That's not what I'm doing. It's not a manipulation tactic. It is part of my theology. I really believe this. I believe you are incredibly smart, and you can use your mind. You have to believe you can. And you have to commit yourself to this to some degree. And so while the stuff I talk about, you may say, "Man, this is over my head," or "It's too hard." I'm trying to create this bridge into this world of theology, this world of intellectual engagement that is not a haughty intellectual engagement, that is one that is celebrating because we are faith-seeking understanding. We are the mystery is there as well. And so, but I believe you can do it. I really do. So I urge you, I plead with you to keep on trying, to believe in yourself, that you are incredibly, incredibly valuable, smart. And if you're in the image of God, man, it's just, if you think about humanity and what humanity is, it really is pretty amazing. I mean, it really is. And you are amazing. And it's amazing that we can sit here and do this. All right, that's enough. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you. Whoa, 1 hour. Sorry I went too long. For those of you who are ready just for the 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I'm sorry about that. I don't know if we'll keep on going this long each time. Depends on how many questions we have and how long-winded I am that day. We will see you next time. Love you all very much. And God bless you.
Theology